weekly TL Talk. It's always very special. I'm always surrounded by brilliant, brilliant people, colleagues, friends, new friends, old friends. This is actually our 20th TL Talk. I think we have an echo for some reason, but it's our 20th TL Talk. We've had 25,000 views, and it's been just an amazing, amazing ride. As you will notice, we've reduced to 3 speakers. And the reason why we've done that is because every week we have such amazing such amazing friends and partners and just incredible contributors come together for our talks. And so what I think that one of the reasons, oh my God, I left.
No, you're here. You're here. You're doing okay. You're with us.
My thing just disappeared. Oh, okay, good.
We're hanging on your every word.
I'm like, oh my God. Okay, good. I'm back. So we've had 25,000 views so far, and every week that we join and I have 4 panelists, I feel that there's never enough time. I want to get deeper in. I want people to have more time to talk, and I feel that it's too many people for me to be able to extract all the information and contact and get a nice debate and conversation going. So we've restructured the model a little bit. We're only going to have 3 panelists, which gives us more time to exchange, and so we can get deeper into subjects. I think one of the amazing things is that I can say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Some people watch us live. Some people watch us in demand. I know people like Penny Rafferty in Australia calls. She says, we're always part of her Saturday morning walk. So please be aware, she's walking now. So I hope you have a nice walk, Penny. And I think this is the beautiful thing about being able to watch it on demand, because you can some people watch us having a glass of wine in the afternoon on a Saturday, on a Sunday. So that's the beauty. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. We have it weekly. The idea is to have every week interesting content with a goal of generating some positive energy. And I think that what has come out of all this after months of doing this is that it doesn't matter your nationality. It doesn't matter your background, your beliefs, your age, everybody comes back for a little taste of hope, a little taste of positive energy, a little light at the end of the tunnel. And why not a little entertainment and a little company surrounded by intelligent, fun people that have no other objective but to try to inspire and motivate. So if you don't know me, my name is Tina Lira. I am the founder of TL Portfolio. We are a representation company and communication agency with offices throughout North and South America. I have a fabulous team of 17 women, which I adore and respect. And I'm thrilled to be once again surrounded by some of the most brilliant minds. I'm going to start by introducing my panel. I will start with Juliet Kinsman. Juliet is the sustainability editor for Condé Nast Traveler. She spent 2.5 decades talking about the world's most special places in which to spend time. A freelance writer, broadcaster, and eco-expert, she's the first ever sustainability editor for Condé Nast Traveler. She was founding editor of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where she was editor-in-chief for 13 years. She also is co-author of Louis Vuitton City Guide for London and New York. And her book, Green Edit Travel, will be coming out in September. Very exciting, that is. She also works as a sustainability consultant, helping luxury brands and companies be a stronger force for good in their communication. So Juliet, it's an honor to have you here. I had heard from you from so many people, and this is like one of the best silver linings that, through all this madness we're living, we get to meet such amazing people. And I told you this, I feel like I've met a kindred spirit. So it's so nice to have you in my life now, because you're not going anywhere, let me tell you that.
Thank you. What a huge introduction. Thank you so much. Thanks for all sitting through that.
And of course, I want to introduce Roland Fasel, who is the Chief Operating Officer at AMAN. Roland joined AMAN in 2017 with over 28 years of experience in the hospitality industry. Roland started his career at the renowned Lausanne Hotel School. As a graduate from Les Roches, I can say it's a pretty good school, kind of, kind of thing,
Absolutely. I would say the same.
Yes, it's okay. His career includes working for some of the most renowned hotel groups and brands, including the Badrut Palace in St. Moritz, the Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts, the Regent Hotels, Shangri-La, and 8 years at the Dorchester Collection. Roland is a supporter of numerous charities, including the Honeypot Children's Charity, Fashion for the Brave, several military-related charities. He also established the Tree Light charity in St. Moritz, which now raises an average of 200,000 Swiss francs a year for the Institute of Disability and Blind Ski School. So Roland splits his time between Switzerland and London, and you're actually with us today from Switzerland. Am I correct?
Yes, Tina. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No,
it's have made your panel. Finally having made your panel, so I appreciate it.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. We have a very dear friend in common, which is Puri, who is my mentor, my very dear friend. So I have to thank him for bridging us and making this happen, as well as obviously Anna Nash, who I adore. Send kisses to. I know she's listening and she's fabulous. And last but not least, another silver lining in all of this craziness that we're living, Kier Matthews, Director of Sales of Classic Vacation. So Kier occupies the role at Classic Vacation since 2017. Prior to that, he was Vice President of Sales for Europe Express for 7.5 years. He was manager at Virtuoso for 2 years and sales manager at Cruise West for 2 years as well. He's also involved in numerous community activities. He's a member of the board of directors for the Big Brother, Big Sister, a nonprofit American organization whose mission is to create and support youth mentoring relationships. He is also in the advisory board member for the American Cancer Society. And apart from being an amazing professional in the hotel industry, I always love the fact that his biggest accomplishment is being father to Isabella, who is 15, and Giovanni, who is 26. Wow. So Kier, you know, you're one of my favorites, and I'm so happy to have you join us back. He was a guest on our diversity panel for a very short blitz because he was on a golf course and he had to go back and play. So he gave like a 5-minute talk and went to hit the golf course. So Kier, thanks for coming back. This time we'll hold on to you for a little longer.
Tina, let me tell you something. It is so much nicer to be with you from the comforts of my home versus trying to navigate teeing off on the 9th hole and the 10th hole and the 11th hole with my best friend as I tried to, get on that conference call. So it's lovely to be with you today. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And so the idea here is really to unite us. And I always keep imagining if we could be sitting in Juliet's living room or at Kier's living room, what would it be looking like as, 3-4 friends chatting about the importance to disconnect. And so it's a casual conversation. Please feel free to interrupt, to give your points, to feel completely at ease. And the first question, I'll start with Juliet. I wanted to just ask you, our topic today is disconnecting from the virtual world, the thought that we've never been so connected and so in need to reconnect. And I was wondering, after all these months of quarantine, what does disconnecting mean to you? What does it look like? And when you look forward to it, what does it look like? And what is the biggest lesson you've taken out of, this past few months?
Yeah, wow, great question. And it's one of those things with language where it can mean something so entirely positive or negative, right? Because we go away because we want to disconnect, go on holiday, but actually also the most important thing as human beings is to connect and to that sense of belonging. And thank you for creating this network during this time. I think that during this time, what we've all done, we've been forced to stop and slow down. So we've had to really think about our time, how we spend it, and we're not traveling for the sake of traveling. And I think obviously it's so wonderful, as you said, to bring hope and shine a light on all the wonderful aspects, but it's been a very, very difficult time for many. But I think what we can agree is perhaps we're going to travel less, but hopefully we will all travel better. And so how does that connect? How does that relate to connection? I think it's the human connection and realizing we are actually, as a human race, we are all connected.
I'm sure many people agree with you. The comments are exactly, I think you're speaking to everybody. Roland, what does disconnect mean to you? And what has been a personal lesson you've taken from these months of quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, it was a very, very different kind of a journey on disconnecting. If you have been running for, let's say, 3.5 years, and then all of a sudden it all comes to a halt. First, you kind of don't know going in where it's all going to end up. And then you obviously have to stop, then you're forced to stop, and you have to finally sit with yourself and deal with the emotion while obviously continue running the business, correct? So what I've thought with having to deal with all the emotions personally, when you then end up running a business, what I did obviously feel is that when the crisis started, I think there was a real, actually people connecting more with yes over all the technology possible than crisis. People tend to respond quite easy. It's very tactical. There's actions to be taken and off we go, correct? And then the second cycle is then we start to regroup. We have hope. You anticipate, wow, well, let's do the plan, let's do the marketing, see how can we re-engage, how we can. So that you're all of a sudden, while being disconnected, you have that hope, that emotion of positiveness, optimism, and so forth. And then you start re-engaging, which is the period we are in today. And I think it's, for me, the most difficult phase. Then all of a sudden you open those hotels and everybody with all this aspiration, and nobody showed up. And as all these people are now in this valley of despair, that's when leadership and obviously you having to jump over your own shadow to keep that inspiration going, that motivation going, becomes the most challenging as a leader. And obviously personal, you got to go through your own kind of wrestling with your own little pieces, correct? So, but as a leader right now, as we're re-engaging, it demands a lot of energy, a lot of inspiring across the globe.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is a need for a second wave of energy right now because it's taking a little bit longer than people may have thought originally. Kier, what is it like for you? What does it mean to disconnect, to reconnect, and what's your learnings?
That's a very good question, Tina, because it's a couple of years ago, I turned off all of the news notifications on my phone because there was just so much insanity, or what I considered insanity and what some people call news, that I could not clear my head. And I make this joke, and it's still very true. I only get a news alert from TMZ because that's really the only thing that doesn't cause me anxiety around the news thing. However, in this, as we look back to what has happened in our world since March to even yesterday, there's just been so much noise. And it's not just about the pandemic, how we respond to it, what we're doing. It's not just about social unrest. It's about the work that we are all doing. How are we educating our children or not educating our children? So one of the things that I really just stepped back and decided to do was, I'm going to take some time to tuck away from all the work, because quite frankly, it hasn't been that slow for me. So as a matter of fact, I think I've worked much harder in the last few months than I have worked in my entire life. So for me to disconnect, it has meant to turn off the phone, to go to places that make me happy, and to be with the people that I love the most. I will tell you that, one of the hardest things for me is my oldest daughter is in New York City, and I've not seen her in months. And God, I didn't even think about this. One of the things I said,
the hard part.
It's, we have to get together. We have to get to that space because her younger sister and I just miss her tremendously. So next week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to take a little time. We're going to get away. No phones, no pictures, no social media, no anything. Just us as a unit together without any of the outside noise, and whether it's friends or family. So disconnection for me has changed over the last few months. And I'm sure it will change as we move forward, but I'm very hopeful that at the end of the day, we will cherish and value these connections that we have, even in a platform like this. Sorry.
No, thank you.
No,
My family's in New York too, so you can go see them for me because I can't even go there. Every August I'm in the Catskills.
Yeah.
Oh.
if you could pass by Miami and see my parents, that would be great because I haven't seen them. It is, and I think that unites us. You know, it unites the fact that some form we're separated by the ones we love. We're restricted to where we can go and who we can see, and that unites all of us globally. You know, it's very, very unique moment. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to jump in and start, Juliet, with you. And I think that this is a feeling that I know is very much in the hearts and minds of a lot of our travel advisors and even hotel friends, because you know, you talk about in your website, you share that you've learned the art of great brand journalism, and I think it's clearly your talent. You know, about engaging copywriting for effective content marketing combines evocative journalism with quality copyright, right? And how it's important to sound human. Now, when we talk about the, you know, escaping or disconnecting, you know, and in a way we're referring to travel or to you know, to getting to the core of what we do. During this pandemic, this has become one of the biggest challenges, messaging, right? How does a travel advisor, a hotel, communicate to the customer, to his client base, to anybody, to his partners, when our core message, which is travel, is limited? We're bounded by, you know, not being able. So how do you sound human when you're kind of restricted by barriers, physically, you know, closed barriers?
So what you're talking about obviously is language, and as something we've definitely learned from this time is that words matter, and how we communicate is so important. It's nuanced, it's complex, and I think what we've learned, let's speak specifically within travel and travel brands. It's important that we feel there's meaning behind what people are saying. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at things in terms of marketing and trying to and selling things through words or communicating messages about travel, you want to spark an emotional reaction, because as we know, you know, 80% of every decision we make is an emotional trigger. It's not just a rational decision. So how do we communicate in a way that has authenticity? I mean, everyone uses the buzzword storytelling, right? But everything, I mean, you can't turn on open an email without seeing something about storytelling or storytelling brands everywhere. But I think it's about communication, and it's about saying things that mean something to the recipient. And I think that's what we've learned. And of course we had, you know, during this time when people were communicating, there were some brands that really strengthened their relationships through their communications, not by trying to sell, but by perhaps sharing thoughts that felt relevant, felt they were from a friend, you know, helpful in that way. But also Black Lives Matter. I mean, my goodness, that really showed us the need to communicate in a way that has meaning, and you know, people aren't tone deaf, and they really are speaking to individuals. It's about being human, as you said. I say on my web, I actually wrote that so long ago, I can't even remember. You're reading it from like, you know, 5 years ago or something. Brand journalism.
But it connects to this moment perfectly, you know, and just you're looking at Kier share such an emotional, you know, I got goosebumps. It connected with me, it connected with you. It's a story that's his, it's real, and yet it makes you so much more interested and wanting to hear more, because suddenly we're united by a common emotion, which is what you were referring to. So,
and authenticity and vulnerability, you know, brands, we don't want to be talked at. And I will say, Amman, for example, those who are familiar with the communications around that, it's about expressing a feeling, you know, and allowing you to feel something. So I hope, you know, this time has really taught us how important it is to think about what we say. And there have been plenty of examples of negative ways that people communicate. I won't get into politics and things like that, but you know, as a world, we see how language can be really dangerous or destructive or manipulated.
Yeah, and powerful.
And powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think you mentioned Amman. I'm going to ask Roland a question, but one of the just tagging out to what you said, you know, I love the fact that Amman says that these are hotels with a heart. You know, that implies that there's feeling, there's emotion. It's not hard in buildings, and you know, it's not talking about the number of thread counts in the sheets. When you say you have a heart, that's really goes to what you're talking about. And Roland, you did a very interesting interview to Guillaume, which is associated with Les Roches, which is interesting. Good school that you did an interview for. But they asked you, what is the role of a CEO? What is considered, what are the ingredients that makes for a good leader in a company? And when you replied, you talked about leading by example. You talked about having a clear purpose, that you need to have allied strategy routes. And so it was very, you gave a very thorough view of what that role is, right? That you are responsible for the operations, that you have to keep a focus, and so forth. And you talk about the importance of purpose, right? So after decades in travel, you've been doing this for a long time. You know this industry, better than most. What is your purpose and core values? And have you felt that they've been shaken up or impacted at all during this COVID crisis?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it goes a little bit, take it one step back, just to talk about what we just, about language. Then it's directly correlated actually to the purpose and my passion about being associated with purpose-led organizations. I mean, in my entire journey, you can actually see, you literally see a similar kind of a deck and approach and methodology of trying to initially start everything in every journey with a proper purpose statement. That's not dissimilar with Amman when we got into the business a few years ago, that we brought in that building block around purpose, values, brand pillars, and then obviously the strategies underneath. But when you then have debates around language and how you want to articulate and highlight your brand, you do have that light, that light or that understanding around purpose, and can be guided on what language you use as you progress, or as you have obviously things to talk about. I think it is purpose-led organization is a lot of literature. I mean, Ben Lorenzo as an example, who has been a leader and has written a lot around purpose. You can clearly see that purpose-led organizations are more successful. And in the situations like crisis, like in the crisis we now entered and trying to come out of it, this is absolutely and fundamentally the base. You can the filter actually. You can pass every decision you want to make through that particular purpose, and it kind of keeps you away to make short-term, tactical, quick decision, which potentially in the mid to long term will affect your brand equity, or more importantly, the culture of your business, right? So yes, in the situation of crisis, you have to be short-term in certain decision-making, but you can never affect the overall purpose, values, and brand pillars you have worked so hard to build, in particular around Amman. So as I said, personally, obviously I'm of similar nature, and obviously the values and the purposes around, the resilience, keeping good humor, all that the pieces I work through it, and I'm on my journey with, you don't change that in a situation of crisis. And that's why obviously my team has been able to use the right language, the right approach, I feel, in kind of re-engaging with the market around Spirit of Amman and all the photography and the assets we use there to really, I think, hit a lot of what we already had as a DNA. Don't forget, I mean, I'm fortunate to run a brand with very, very strong DNA around the stuff we are talking about currently.
And can I ask, what is the purpose of Amman? Can you put it in a sentence? Does it? Yeah,
we're creating sanctuaries by nurturing our Pathfinder spirit and curating uncomplicated sense of belonging.
Okay, what does that mean to you? Because it's very well written, beautiful words, but what is that, if you speak from it when I hear about it, I think about hotels that have a heart clearly and wanting to make a connection, but I don't know if that's the essence of it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's very much the essence of. I mean the sanctuaries and what a sanctuary is, an oasis, and a hotel in a particular context represents. I think a sanctuary is something where you really become the bridge to the cultures you operate in, where you're the custodian of the context you operate in, and really bring the then the Amman guest. To be an Amman guest, I think you have to be curious, correct? I think curiosity is the driving force of an Amman client, and therefore you have to be curious about the culture and the destination you now embark to visit, embark to learn more about it, and then embark to really explore. And then obviously I'm then providing you in that sanctuary, I'm providing you with the access to, like, I have 13 hotels with UNESCO sites next to them, correct? So I'm actually,
you're giving them access.
Yeah, in those sanctuaries, I give you access and I give you experiences which ultimately become part of your social currency, and I continuously innovate around that to continuously keep that sanctuary piece obviously alive. The nurturing our Pathfinder spirit is obviously crucial. Then yes, we're entering a cycle of urban expansion, and therefore I felt that in the purpose we need to root a statement that we cannot give up that Pathfinder spirit, that being first, that being embracing not only some of the urban context, that we also make sure that we keep on focus to go to the Mustangs of the world, and that we are going to be the first one going to get into town like we used to, like we did many years ago. And that spirit I don't want to lose, right? And
sure,
I think
sure.
the big concern around that 3-4 years ago, and I think we have managed that quite well.
I just wanted
definitely go ahead.
I wanted to tell you about a wonderful thing. I had to research some stories during this time, and I spoke to a couple of Amman GMs and talking about the spirit of Amman. And I just wanted to add from a outsider's perspective also. I spoke to Karen Vansel in India during this time, and because the lockdown happened so suddenly in India, she had to have 60 members of her team staying there on the site in Rajasthan, for example. Yeah. And what she did, they're a family, they were there together, and it became that sort of Amman culture was how they lived. And what she did was take the time to help them learn more. They did online courses about hospitality while they were there together, and they just had this incredible time. And I spoke to Jan in Java in Indonesia, who told me about he personally was doing a lot to try and help a local orphanage. And of course, they're right on the doorstep of Borobudur. And it was that for me it's the brochure pictures we see for Amman, these beautiful, slick images. Beautifully art directed, but for me that essence really came through the stories through those general managers about being so there, part of their destination and their community.
That's fantastic. And I think thanks for adding that, Juliet, for sure. A very, very special connection. Kier, I wanted to jump and get your storytelling a little bit, because beyond all of your experience of 20 plus years as a hotelier, you've become quite a force and quite a voice in the Black Lives Movement. And I think, I'm sure you've always been a force and a voice, because you're not the quiet type, but we tend to hear you a little more now. And I was just curious, growing up, who inspired you? Where did you take your lessons from, and how are you applying these lessons to everything that's going on today?
It's a very interesting question, because, growing up, the only thing I really wanted to be as a child was the president of the United States. And as I got into college, I decided that I wanted to be Secretary of State. And so
it's still time, November.
Still time, right? Yeah, still time. I'm good now. I'm doing what I really love. But when I think about who inspired me and who motivated me, it was more kind of the political leaders of the time, because quite frankly, hospitality and travel is about protocol and diplomacy. How do we treat people? How do we make people feel comfortable? And when you get to see that up close and personal, it certainly helps you understand the role of hospitality in someone's life. You know, we can all go to a book and read about how to host a perfect dinner party, or we can call a friend and we can figure out how to get the perfect place setting and the right meal and so on and so on and so forth. But using protocol and diplomacy and politics and relation in order to learn and grow and kind of help people feel comfortable. You know, I've stayed at one AMAN, it was a year ago, as a matter of fact, this past week. And to have had that experience, to have had that welcome that is not very common, you know, that's a special feeling. So the more I look at the people that kind of inspired me, those people were the people that were teaching me how to love and care for the planet, the people in my life, not just friends, but also family as well. So, you know, when I look at my mentors, I mean, I will say this, but don't tell anyone I said this. You know,
this is the perfect forum to tell secrets. Go ahead.
This is the perfect forum to tell that. You know, growing up as a kid, I thought Ronald Reagan was the best thing since sliced bread. Not because I believed in his politics, but because the man knew how to communicate. So I thought, wow, what can I learn from him on communication, connection, the power of words, the power of hospitality, all of those things. So those were my mentors. I'm sorry, but they're a little bit different than most.
And I think that's fabulous, because it goes back exactly to what Juliet was saying, that the power of communication and the power of words are so impactful. I mean, you know, I had every night at dinner, my dad would, you know, share what happened at work and talk about politics. And he would say, this guy shouldn't have done that. They should have done this. I can't believe he did this. And I grew up thinking, oh my God, nobody knows. The guy knows everything. It's like my dinner table. He should be president. He knows everything. You know? That's how I grew up. So look at the power of words, right? It's like I remember thinking, my God, he has the answer for everything. So it's important. Communication is so key, and be able to choose and select the word that connects the right meaning, because, you know, it drives with it so much energy, right?
You know, can I just add one thing?
Please.
Can I just add one thing? I was talking to a friend the other day about, and this goes back to the piece where you talked about speaking out and sharing. And I was talking to a friend the other day about, you know, sharing the story and coming forward and all of that. And one of the things he said to me is, you know, this becomes a piece of your life work. So your career is not just about anymore your next position, you're moving up the ladder, you're making more money. It is about, how do you open doors for that next generation? How do you give people who do not have a seat at the table in a significant and meaningful way? So stop thinking about yourself, Kier, and start thinking about the good that you can do. So when you talk about people who have inspired me, my dear friend Grady is probably had one of the biggest impacts on my life in a simple conversation. So that I'm still getting mentors and I'm still being inspired by a lot of people, even to this day.
Kier for president.
Yeah.
Don't tell my children that. They don't want anything to do with it.
But it's a very good topic about. Then I feel, you know, even in the challenging cycle we're in, if you really recognize how privileged we all are to be part of such a creative and resilient community and industry, I think one thing it really pushed to the forefront in my consciousness is that my responsibility, my sense of responsibility, how much it has sharpened to really create more frameworks for people in my ecosystem to be successful and to be safe and to be actually trying to inspire them so they have a better future, they see things which they may not see right now. But that sense of responsibility and the sharpening of that sense of responsibility really is something who I guess with the slowing down in pace, I think is something I'm going to take away from this last 3 or 4 months of sitting still and having to wrestle with all the realities. Correct?
It's true. And we had a previous panelist say that when you're going through moments of fragility or frustration or anguish or fear or all of these emotions that we're living today, the best thing to do is to give, because the more you help, the more you give, the more it fills you, and the more it gives you that energy, and it fills that gap, and it gives you, you know, this positive wave of you know, just feeling. And it's funny, and they say that the when you give something, the more the person is unable to give you back, you know, the even bigger the return on self, you know, I don't know, care and love and positive energy. And this is something that has become so clear throughout this pandemic, because right now in my personal business, but I think for all there's nothing I can do. I can't get this industry restarted earlier than it will, no matter what. So I might as well open a channel and just throw out, you know, positive energy and see what, you know, what I can help. That's right. We can huff and puff here, but it won't help much.
And going back to language and words having meaning, of course, I always talk about this, and so apologies to anyone who's heard me speak before, but often, you know, the Greek word for hospitality, philoxenia, which means the kindness of strangers. And that is everything. That's what we've learned. That's what's essential. And that's what Kier's talking about in terms of hospitality. It is the kindness, that exchange between the host and the guest. It's the kindness of strangers.
Tina, you said something that my grandmother used to say when I was a kid about giving all the time, because she really instituted, you know, pushed us to give more. And there's an old saying in her church that goes very simply: give and it will come back to you. Your good measure will be taken by the other person. It will be pressed down, shaken together, and it will come back to you in a way that will overwhelm you. So when we think about our work, it is about giving, because if you give in the right way and with the right purpose and the right intent, it will come back to you in a way that overwhelms you positively. And that ripples throughout our economy. So you can actually change a city, you can change a state or a country or a region or the world by continuing to give in that good, old-fashioned, basic, kind way.
Very, very true. And that's a perfect lead on, because I wanted to ask Juliet, in a recent Condé Nast Travel article, you wrote why sustainable travel is as much about humanity and diversity as it is about the planet. And you speak about Trevor Phillips. I know you're very passionate about telling a little bit of the story that travelers, when they embark in a journey, they need to be aware that though, you know, the geographical surroundings change, they're still within the same planet, right? And how that connection with with humans is so important. And that very often, and I loved how you worded this, that change does not come about simply by people lamenting others' situation. Like, I can feel sorry for you, but unless I take a step further, it won't change anything. And I think that's where we are in this moment of time, is like, lamenting is just not good enough. You know, it's the same thing as boasting about it is also not good enough, and it's a bit passé. So how can we collaborate and can you give a few examples of how you see this role in both for travel advisors and hoteliers alike moving forward?
Thank you. Well, there's so many thoughts. I've got so many thoughts on what we've been saying. So actually that was Trevor. I was quoting Trevor about, it's not about lamenting change. It's about having a conversation on what we can do to influence change. And I obviously write about sustainability, and I talk about sustainability generally. And that by definition is us thinking about how do we meet our needs today. There are 8 billion of us around today, and that's going to grow and grow and grow, without compromising the needs of future generations, right? So as a tourism industry, how do we help all of us now and tomorrow? And I guess, you know, we all think about sustainability and then environmental sustainability as being about solar panels or reducing our carbon emissions. And I'm really glad what we're doing now is talking about how really it's, we need social change. We need socio-economic change. We need to look at how we affect that. There are lots of reasons. I can explain why actually that's almost sometimes more important than environmental sustainability. But let's look at wealth distribution. Let's look at the tourism industry and the power to shift money all over the world from those who have it to those who do not have it. And it's really actually, in my opinion, as an industry, as a sector, that's where I think our responsibility and our ability to have an immense positive impact lies. So those, you know, booking a trip, you've got the person deciding where they go, and the supply chain, where does that money go? How much of that stays in local destinations? Then you have the person, the agents, who are choosing the people or the supply chain. So you've got Kier, who is an operator, he's planning all of this. How do we navigate each other to the good guys, the guys who are looking after their communities, the guys who are thinking not just about themselves, but how can I lift more people up or bring them to the table? People who are thinking like that. And I think really to put all of this in context in terms of business and sustainability and humanity, I think this is a really interesting way of framing it. The Business Roundtable, which is the collection of CEOs in America, said last August, so almost a year ago in Washington, they rewrote their corporate charter. So that's the sort of goal of a business. They said, let's not always prioritize shareholders. Let's always think about stakeholders. Now, stakeholders in our context, it's everyone, the communities, the people who work there, your team, your staff, the guests, the people booking it. It's everyone. Let's always think about stakeholders, not just shareholders. So that's purpose, not just profit. And that's the biggest thing we can do. I'm going to do the right thing, not the thing that makes me the most money.
Yeah, well, goosebumps. Yeah, no, for sure. It's so true, and it's a shift in thought. I was speaking to a few hoteliers recently, and there is a conversation on pricing. How luxury hospitality shouldn't go into the price fighting model and the whole thing, and that will happen, but how they're going to break out into the true luxury segment and then everybody else. And I kind of feel like thinking, well, what if we don't call it discounting or anything, but we give a percentage of that in the uber luxury commit long term, that if you buy with me, then 5% of your booking will stay to the community. And I know that even if I pay a little bit more, but I know that when I make that payment, it will go to the local community. And I really do believe that travelers are going to want to be proud of traveling, to say, what, I'm proud, I'm traveling around the world. Yes. And you know why? Because by doing this, look at all the people I'm helping. I'm helping this community. And make it easy, because nobody wants to work too hard, but I know that all the companies I'm working and I'm choosing are helping me feel good and contribute without having to, work too hard for it.
The responsibility then is education and language. It's communicating why that matters and how that matters, because people they don't want to pay more without understanding why they're paying more. So the responsibility is on all of us to explain where that money needs to go and why. It's an education piece for all of us.
And I think, Roland, in an interview you had with CNA Luxury, you talked a little bit about the family model and how families travel is evolving. And this was actually a year ago or so. But you talked about how in Amman's family offerings, you're looking more at investing in the local culture and talking about the people in the destination, right? So it's no longer about creating a movie theater in the hotel for the children, but more about creating insightful cultural experiences that actually teach children something about the local community. And you went further to say that you also think that the trend of families wanting to give back more is something that you're seeing. So this was about a year ago. How has that progressed? There's a big talk that everything's being accelerated. How has that continued, that movement?
No, I mean, this is obviously again a shift on the Amman journey forward, and the anything around kids and family was maybe not on the forefront of the first few cycles of the Amman journey. But if you're truthful and understand the customers, it's obviously evolving into that direction. So for us, it is only normal to embrace that particular segment, but we also wanted to do it very much the Amman way. And again, around sustainability and what we have done around the kids, it's really in the hotel themselves. The hotels are so ingrained in those communities. There are every single hotel is from the environmental piece to the community relationship to the educational piece. Every hotel is very, very much driven by being an anchor in the context we operate, right? In the destination we operate. And that's fascinating. And I have to talk to this. Then obviously it drove actually corporate to change their views. It's not that corporate is changing the hotels. The culture in the hotels, in the Amman, in those hotels, is so strong around all the sustainability piece and locally farm and as I said, the community relationships. So it forced corporate to adjust the strategy and say, listen, we need to change fundamentally a few years ago and actually have a brand pillar, which is not just around design and peace and everything else we have. You need to have a brand pillar around sustainability, which then, once that was articulated and once that was then rolled out, it just was then coming together between field and the corporate strategy. Then ultimately today, a lot of the developers and a lot of the people we want to do Ammans with are very, very concerned. There are some of them are on UNESCO, UNESCO UN committees to drive the environmental or the ocean changes in the ocean and how we treat the ocean and so forth. So some of those developers are putting pressure on us to make this part of the of culture. But to come back to the original question around families and obviously kids, so we have in all the constructions moving forward, we have these discovery centers. And the discovery center is our way of trying to do or create a link between the local culture and the kids. And where you can learn calligraphy, where you can learn tea ceremonies, where in Bali you have obviously another piece around really learning everything about the Balinese culture and the relationship between the kids and the families and so forth. So great efforts have been made on that level for sure. And as I said, the vehicle to this is what we call a discovery center. And this is kind of a kids club for the curious kids or the kids or families who are curious enough to wanting to come to the destination and learn about it. So finally, I think today I have a fully integrated strategy and a brand pillar. At the same time, it's all happening anyway, which is quite interesting. And usually you drive it from the top and the field is executing some sort of strategy. Here, we have so much going on that level, on sustainability and community relations, and that it actually it was the corporate office who had to align. Then all of a sudden, all the developers and everybody wanted to do business with us, plus the customer, of course, wanted to have Amman recognizing that this is a key pillar to embrace for the future. And I think we've done quite well on doing that.
Yeah, no, and that's I think the ultimate, right? When regardless of where the business angle wants to go, that there's a force beyond that comes from all directions, from investors, from the local community, that pushes you to do the right thing, which is often not so much maybe related directly to profit, but to the people and the planet. I think that's a great, I think that shows great leadership when you're actually allowing the company to flip and have the decision coming from different angles. So that's great. I wanted to go back to Kier. As Juliet pointed out, sustainability is as much about the planet as it is about humanity and diversity. And this is a topic that I love to pick your brain on. Inclusion and diversity are topics that have been discussed very often, but very much in private groups. Unfortunately, it hasn't been, showcased, and therefore we haven't seen change in the velocity that we would all like it to be. And I've always very appreciative, and I admire your positive and your way that you tend to educate in a very nice way. And I've used that ability of yours often, because it is a topic that I very much enjoy, and that I want to become an ally to the Black community and so forth. And so I go to you for help, because it is one that's very sensitive, and despite my desire to do well, I'm very fearful am I saying the right thing? Is it the Black community? Is it the colored community? Is it, African American? I go, here I don't want to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I remember you said, Tina, it doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you're bringing light to the subject and you're trying to evoke change. Like, don't be so worried about the details, but it's a sensitive conversation. And so I would love for you to expand on, can we make it easier for people to join the conversation?
Well, that's a very good question. And I've already gotten a lesson earlier today from our prep for this call. So we'll talk about that in a second. I think at the end of the day, Simon Sinek said something that I tend to not get out of my head. Just move, just go, take a step, do something. And it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need that forward momentum. You talk about sustainability and kind of where we are and what we've done. Al Gore was talking 20 some odd years ago about this and sustainability and, protecting our environment. And look where we are today. It just takes forward momentum. When you talk about, kind of race in this country, from a lot of business leaders have talked about, oh, well, don't waste this crisis. This is a great opportunity to not waste the crisis. Well, don't waste the crisis for real, because this is a real opportunity to lay the foundation so that we can change the way we can change our relationship in this country, in the United States, with Black people, because it's a unique opportunity and people are much more engaged and are much more and paying much closer attention. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it all right all the time. You just got to try. You got to move. My new dear friend, Juliet, who's on this panel, said something today earlier. She reminded me of a Chinese proverb. Juliet, this is on my desk. I'm never going to forget it. It is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. So my work, all of our work, is to keep lighting as many candles as we can. And before you know it, we'll have thousands, if not millions of points of light throughout this planet and throughout this country that really push us to the betterment of ourselves. And yes, there are going to be roadblocks, and there are going to be people who don't get it. There are going to be people who don't understand. There are going to be, I've got colleagues talking to me about how their own parents don't say, get it. I've got colleagues that have said, still even a week ago, stuff that would be just absolutely insane to say anymore. But at the end of the day, I will continue to shine a light so that ultimately we get the ball down the road and our cities, states, this country, and this world and this planet, it's just so much better. So Tina, you can get it wrong. You can call it by the wrong name. You can mispronounce it. You can do all kinds of stuff, but just move. Yeah.
Keep talking and keep having difficult conversations, keep making mistakes. As Mandela said, sorry to keep putting on there, but it's Mandela, you don't, what is it? We don't measure ourselves on the amount of times we fall over or our failures. We measure the times by how many times we pick ourselves up.
Get up.
That is it.
I destroyed that quote.
No, but can I share a story that for me was so incredible? I've always considered, and I've told Kier this, I love diversity. I've lived all over the world. I'm Brazilian. I grew up in Mexico. I studied in Switzerland. I lived in Paris. Then, I lived with 7 tribes in Southeast Asia. I'm very competitive. I lived in Turks and Caicos, and I kill at dominoes. I've done the whole thing. So I've always felt that I was embraced, and I love it. And the amazing thing was that from our last diversity panel, we had Jeanette, and we have some amazing friends from the African-American community, and they highlighted the importance of small gestures, the importance of image, and how we were talking about the media and how, as Kier mentioned, a lot of the luxury publications never see a Black person in the magazine, and growing up without seeing yourself, there's a message there. And I heard that and I thought, oh my God, what is my company like? So I started looking through my Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm horrible. So I was like, that's it. We're doing diversity through the images. This is appalling. I am so embarrassed. And the most shocking thing that I received was people unfollowing me because they were racist. And I had never thought that anybody that followed, and I thought, what? You're following me? Why are you here?
But Tina,
I couldn't believe it.
The reality is this, you know, we're such a diverse world and such a diverse culture, and we come at this with our own lens. And I got to tell you, my two daughters have taught me more about race in America than I could have ever thought I would experience. And listening to their stories and listening to their experiences, me paying more close attention to what people say and how they say it, you know, it takes all of us to make this world unique and interesting and colorful and wonderful place to be. But we also have to be mindful that everybody doesn't share our viewpoint, and that's okay. You know, it's better to figure this out now and remove those people from our lives. I haven't unfriended so many people in my entire life in social media. I mean, just the vitriolic thoughts that are out there, but you can't live in it. You just got to keep shining the light wherever you can, so that at the end of the day, there are more candles than there, you know, actually is darkness.
And it's so, when you feel it, you know, when I had never felt it, and when I felt it, I thought, oh my God, the more posting, you know, that I'm like, now you're gonna get it 50 times, you know. It's like, so anyway, it's I just wanted to share, because this is something I felt during these TL talks, and it's taught me, you know, it's made me have so much more empathy. And I invite everybody to turn on a candle, you know, to put some light in the topic, because it changes us. And again, these little talks are changing a little bit, somebody here and there, and I think that it's creating a movement. So I thank you all very much for you know, your contribution. I have more questions, but again, the conversation goes, and we get close to the end of the time, and I want to really make sure that I get to the last question, which is that if everybody were to forget everything we've talked about during this conversation, what would be your final message? You know, what do you want to leave them with? And I always find that we finish our week, and there are some messages that ring in our brains, you know, that stay with us. And I've spoken to so many of our travel advisors and hoteliers, and they say, oh, the last one I remember, you know, the water flows, and you know, and everybody remembers a little message. So, you know, what would be your message? And Roland, I'm going to start with you.
All right. So as I said before, I mean, I'm very, you know, obviously privileged to be part of such a creative and innovative community, which I want to stress. But ultimately, you know, the first rule of the game is really to stay in the game. Ultimately, I think not to give up. I think continue to be truthful to your beliefs and your values, and keep on innovating and keep on searching for opportunities. I think that's the spirit I try to teach and inspire people every day.
Very, very well put. It is easy to get demotivated, and it's easy to give up, you know, because the storm is taking longer than anybody expected. And that's when we have to embrace, make new friends. I knew it when I put these TL talks together, and I'm like, oh, these guys are so going to click. It's going to be great. And so, you know, it fuels us with energy. You know, we meet new people. They make us feel good. And so you have to really remember, call upon somebody on your days, you know, on your difficult days, and let them shine some light and pick you up, and vice versa. And we start to gain time and get ideas. And, you know, I had an amazing call with a dear friend, Jack Ezon, on Monday or Tuesday. It was like an hour long, and we were brainstorming, and it was like, wow, look at everything that we could do, you know, and that's what we need to do, rely on each other. So Juliet, tell us, what is your
Thank you.
message?
Well, to riff off something, that Roland has just said about values, I always talk about, instead of VFM, value for money, think about values for money. And it's a cliche for anyone who's a sustainability spokesperson to say, but every single time we spend money, or we get someone else to spend money, we're advising them, we're taking a vote for the world that we want to live in and the tomorrow that we want. So think about that. Every single time you spend money, everything, every time, who you're giving it to and where it's going, you know, that can have a positive impact.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we had our last talk, I think, or the one before last, was value versus values, right? And it was all
Values
about that. And it's a very, very true. And I guess every decision you make could be a step towards the right direction or not. Every decision you take is so valuable. Very, very correct. Kier, I left it to you, no pressure, but you can take it home.
You know, when I think about, you know, one of my closing messages and what I want to leave people with is, number one, Roland's hotels have the best swim trunks I've ever found in my life.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm sending you another one. I'm saying it's not quite in the mail, but it will come.
It'll come. Number two,
Yeah.
Juliet is just a beacon of light and kindness. And number three, all of this is made possible because of the work that you are willing to do, Tina. And it gets us all back to that space of vulnerability, because Juliet mentioned it a minute ago. If we just walk in vulnerability, just literally, truly walk in the true definition of vulnerability, our capacity to change this world is unparalleled. We can get a lot of stuff done. We just have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to do it. So keep supporting each other, and keep lighting the candles. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that lesson today.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And it's always it goes by too quick, right? It's like an hour that just flies by, and it's obviously my favorite hour of the week. I love this moment. It's a lot of work to put it together, but it all comes together so beautifully, and it's so inspirational for me. I always learn something new. And so thank you so much for those that are listening. If you're on a Saturday, on a Sunday, if it's morning or evening, thank you so much for sharing your day with us. Roland, Juliet, Kier, thank you for sharing your insights, and it's been a tremendous pleasure, and I look forward to staying in touch. Have a great weekend, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.